And hello, everyone, and welcome to the Full Funnel B2B Summit Day 3 and the session on ABM by Kamil Rextin. Now, we had several sessions today and now about ABM, and now we are going to hear Kamil, who is running the 42 agency or the 42nd, the 42 agency, and they help B2B SaaS companies drive demand and improve their marketing and sales operations. He previously worked in-house as a marketer and growth roles at B2B brands such as Crowdrift, Uberflip, and Breather. So Kamil, welcome. I'm really excited to have you, and please take it away.
Thank you for having me, and I'm excited to begin. And if you have questions, comments, if you want to put in your own thoughts, anything, just like feel free to interrupt me. I want to have this as a back and forth discussion versus me just talking to myself. So just jump in anytime. So my session today is about ABM and go-to-market strategies and how ABM is essentially outbound. And we're going to dig into what ABM is, when ABM is not, and why I think this way. A little bit about myself. Thank you, Jeffrey, for the picture. I know, Jeffrey, you're on there somewhere. I'm a dad of two. I'm a marketing person. I'm a cynic, so I'm very skeptical of when people say XYZ. I'm always like, I don't really trust it until we can prove it works for me. And I'm call myself a general manager, but I started the agency 3-4 years ago. We're a team of two now. So what is 42 Agency? Some of you might have guessed it. The name is from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. There's a scene where they build a supercomputer to find out the meaning of life in the universe. And then 10 million years later, the supercomputer says that the meaning of the life in the universe is actually the number 42. So that's where the name came from. And we're a plug and play demand gen and ops for B2B SaaS ready for scale. So first off, I want to talk about the elephant in the room. There's this book written by an ABM vendor, and the whole title of the book is that ABM is B2B. And my point of view is ABM is not B2B. And I hope by the end of this presentation, you'll get to see why I think that way. So what we'll talk about today in a very high level is what is a go-to-market strategy. ABM is not your technology stack, what ABM should be, and questions towards the end or as we dig into it, you can always ask questions and just interrupt me, totally fine. So somehow, somewhere during this modern marketing life cycle, we had some vendors convince us that we need to be doing ABM. And those vendors are very good at convincing the C-level and executives on the board. And the board then comes and says, I heard about this new thing called account-based marketing. Why are you not doing it? But is it really actually a new thing, or is it something that's been recycled over the years under different names? But my point of view, and this comes from, I was reading a book about sales that was written in early 1980s or 1970s. And they talk about this concept of, oh, somebody has a chat. Is that? Oh yeah, okay, sorry, go ahead. And sales always had this concept of dream account list, where sales would sit down and they would say, these are the list of accounts we really want to close. And then they would work towards closing those accounts. And those accounts might be big customers. They might be just a perfect fit for the solution, or it might be some regional or something like that. Now, what MarTech vendors did was they created a fear of missing out to sell more software. So we had all these ABM vendors pop up over the last 5 to 10 years, and they say, oh, if you're not doing ABM, you're missing out on stuff. Oh, by the way, if you need to do ABM, this is a perfect software solution for 200 grand a year that you need if you want to do ABM properly. But the point I'm trying to make is that you don't need ABM technology, quote unquote ABM technology, to actually do account-based marketing. ABM is not display ads or intent data, and that's what a lot of the vendors are. And I'm happy to go into intent data. There's some good stuff out there, but I'm skeptical of the whole thing, a little bit skeptical of it. And ABM is not running targeted IP-based display ads to your target accounts, because that's basically demand gen. And we talk about this concept of one-to-one, one-to-many, one-to-few. But in my point of view, that's just a made-up thing that vendors came up with to sell you, again, the concept of their software. So like if you're doing one-to-many ABM, you need something like a terminus, because you can target a lot of list of accounts with display ads. But my question is like, is that really ABM? Because you're not really personalizing everything. And to me, ABM at scale is an oxymoron, because ABM is defined by a target list of accounts, and you're not really doing it at scale to 1,000 or 10,000 accounts, that's demand gen, inbound, whatever you want to call it. Now, what is account-based marketing? In my point of view, account-based marketing is actually a go-to-market strategy. But what the hell is a go-to-market strategy? So let's dig into that. So there's this lovely person on Twitter. She used to work at Atlassian. She has her own startup now. Her name is Carolyn Clark. You should look her up on Twitter. She's amazing. She wrote this incredibly useful deck on what a go-to-market strategy is that I sort of borrow from here. Go-to-market strategy defines who is your ideal customer, who are we trying to sell to, what is their buyer persona, who are these people, what do they care about, what's their job to be done, what is the market you operate in, and what is their buying behavior. So how do they like to buy software? And we'll dig into this a little bit more. How will you reach them? What channels, what strategies, where do they hang out? Are they online searching for solutions? Are they solution aware, problem aware? Are they considering a set of solutions? How do you scale? And that's where you go into what's your customer lifetime value? What is your customer acquisition cost? What's your pricing model? How do you want to package everything? And talking about buying modes, how a large company buys versus a small company buys is very different. So that sort of defines how your go-to-market strategy is structured as well. Your buyers are not always your users, especially when it comes to enterprise users and buyers. The buyers might be finance or procurement, but the end user is somebody who's actually using the software day to day. Versus when you're selling to a small, medium-sized business, typically like an agency of 5 people like my own, I am the buyer and I'm going to use the software day to day. And this is where you can do freemium, you can do quote unquote product-led growth, which I think is another way of saying freemium, but don't quote me on that because I'm going to get a lot of hate for that. And when you're doing enterprise, you have a different set of stakeholders. You need to convince a larger bunch of people to, oh, that's Sebastian. Hey, Sebastian. You need to convince a larger group of people to buy your software versus trying to convince one person to buy your software and they can put it on their credit card, versus an enterprise buy is a longer sales cycle and it's not a credit card purchase. So what's interesting is longer sales cycles, multiple stakeholders. The way you approach that problem is very different than you would be doing a transaction selling. Transaction selling is, I go in, I sign up for a free account, I like the software, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna pay for it. So I'll give an example. Yesterday I was using Loom and they said, you've reached your video limit, blah, blah, blah. Like it's $10 a month, I'll just put in my credit card. I didn't have to talk to somebody. I didn't have to like go through a consideration process and look at, oh, I'm buying Loom. What about 5 other tools that I might be considering? Because it's such a big purchase. I want to make sure I get it right. It was a simple $10 a month, no brainer. I put it in my credit card, done. But if it was something like Salesforce, I would have been, what about HubSpot? What about Pipedrive? Because that's going to be a bigger purchase for me. Now, when do you deploy ABM? Higher annual contract values. So they tend to, customer lifetime value, annual contract value tends to be high. You have a longer sales cycle. It's not a transaction sale. It's not something people can put in a credit card. And you have a very well-defined market. So this is the part that a lot of people, I think, misunderstand, where when I'm saying well-defined market, I'm not talking about 10,000 accounts. I'm talking about like there's 50, 100, 200 accounts that you can define and put into a bucket, versus having having a market is not selling to us. Like, it's not saying we're going to sell to small, medium-sized businesses. It's saying like we're going to sell to Fortune 50, Fortune 100, and these are some criteria they need to have. The good example of there are a finite amount of companies with higher enough customer value is one of my customers I was working with. They sold to airlines, and there's only a finite number of airlines in the world. So our target market was super well defined. It was all the airlines across the world, which was like literally 500 airlines that they could sell to. On top of that, we had another criteria. They need to be a certain revenue size. They need to have certain flight paths. They need to be running certain number of flights every month, which even narrowed it down even more. And the customer value was high enough because that was a big enterprise sale. It was not something they could just rip and replace or put on the credit card. It was a very complex sales cycle. So, but what the WTF is ABM? So ABM is not 6 Sense or Terminus. If you're from 6 Sense or Terminus and you're listening to this, please don't hate me. ABM is a strategic go-to-market motion for enterprise accounts. It is primarily driven by outbound and sales coordinated with marketing. The goal is to engage a known set of accounts. Now, this is where the outbound piece comes in, because a lot of people think ABM is actually about marketing, but it's not. It's about sales. And marketing is more so playing a supporting role to sales versus marketing running their own playbooks independently. Where most people go wrong when they do ABM is they buy ABM technology, put a marketer, relatively junior marketer behind it, and they call it ABM. And they're like, okay, we're doing ABM and that's it. But in reality, the fact is that everything operates in a silo, and marketing is still throwing qualified accounts over the fence, just like we do with qualified leads. And there's no communications, there's no coordination, and there's no sense of combined goals or anything like that. Why is my slide not switching? Essentially, at its heart, is ABM is a coordinated effort between marketing and sales. There's no scoring, lead scoring, there's no MQL, there's no qualification or leads, because revenue teams, which is what I'm defining as marketing and sales and maybe CS teams, have a defined set of accounts that they go after. So they make marketing and sales sits down and says, okay, who are my ideal buyers? How many of them are out there in the universe? Maybe there's 100, maybe there's 200. And then they work together on getting those people to pay attention to what they're trying to sell. And like it or not, ABM is primarily driven by outbound sales motion, because the idea is that your universe of accounts isn't that big that you have to run inbound playbooks and like do SEO and get a bunch of traffic, and 2% of that traffic converts into something, and then you call it a day. You are primarily proactively going after these accounts versus waiting for them to come to you. So that's the main, I would say, the core difference is that and that's why you don't have qualification, because if the leads if the accounts of people aren't qualified, they should not be on your account list in the first place. Questions so far? No, I'll just keep going. And it's not an inbound funnel in the traditional sense. You don't need to attract prospects. It's one of the most interesting things about the last 20 years in marketing is that HubSpot convinced us that inbound is the only way to do marketing, and we all have to do SEO and we all have to attract prospects. But the reality is, if you're selling to SMBs, yes, because your universe is so long, they might be actively searching for a solution. There might be a transaction sale. But if you're selling to enterprise accounts, they're most likely already have something in place. You're trying to either rip and replace something or find a budget for something new. And that is a more complicated sales cycle, and you can't really inbound your way into an enterprise sale. Of course, there's exceptions to everything, but HubSpot invented inbound as a way to sell more software, to be honest. And it's one of the things that people are diehard about, but they don't realize that inbound is not the only right way to do marketing. It depends on your market. Something I love, and Georgiana on Twitter, you should give her a follow. She runs Forget the Funnel, and Lucy's here, who's part of that group. She has this terminology called customer-led growth, which I love, because it determines how your customers buy determines how you grow, how you go to market to them. So if you're selling to SMBs, by all means do SEO, by all means run search ads. But if you're doing enterprise or mid-market, then those strategies probably don't work for you. So how do you actually do ABM? So here's some things that I sort of help people walk through is you have to do account planning. You have to figure out who your account is, what are the current challenges, what is the current buying behavior, research your stakeholders. If you're selling to the CFO and a procurement and stuff, everybody has different agendas. Everybody's trying to cover their bases in different matters. So understand what their agenda is, what they're trying to get out of the solution, what is the risk for each department, and how can you mitigate all those risks. Understand product account fit. This is something I just came up with for this slide. To be honest, it's not a thing, but it's trying to understand how your product fits into the current company you're selling and the ecosystem they have, the technology stack they have, the current processes they have, and trying to make a case for this is how you can build it. Build actual relationships. There's this trend going on these days that every marketer should start a podcast. It's like back in 2010, everybody had a blog, or early 2000, everybody had a blog, and we do all these guest posts. So now everybody's trying to start podcasts, and they try to invite all their target accounts on the podcast, and they're like, oh, we're building a relationship. Don't actually build genuine relationship. Understand what's important to them. Make them the heroes in their jobs. Don't make it about your product, make it about themselves, and understand their pain points. So if you're selling to IT, they might be worried about integration and backwards compatibility or stuff like that, and security. Make a business case for that. Versus if you're selling to a CMO, they might care about how good it is at what it does and how it helps their marketing team and blah, blah, blah. So it's very different agendas that everybody's trying to get out of it. Come on, slides. And then once you have everything in place, you have done the research, you have put an account plan in place, you understand who the stakeholders are, what their challenges are, and this is all documented. I can send some templates as well if you want. Then you can start running some playbooks and get on the radar of your target accounts in partnership with sales. It's not just marketing running its own show. Some example playbooks is like something like postal.io that we use quite a bit to send some direct mail to our target accounts and buyers and just be like, here's a box of cupcakes. I'd love to show you what we do here at 42 Agency. One interesting thing that I've ran is I've done some offline billboards and I just put them right in, like when I was working with one of my customers who was selling to airlines, we actually put some billboards near the airport where the airlines offices were. And then a week later, they were like, hey, we want to talk to you because what you're selling is very interesting. Now, we could do that because one, the cost wasn't relatively high, and two, the closed deal, the customer value was high enough that I could spend $50,000 on a billboard for 3 weeks and be confident we can make that money back. And you don't actually have to put it in front of their office. It might be a little bit creepy, but like you get the idea. You don't have to rely on online channels like, display ads and stuff like that. Customize your product messaging and content to the account. So whatever the challenges are, you've done your account research, you know what they're trying to get out of the product. You customize that to what they're trying to do. And work in network. Like this was one of the most successful strategies we've had in the past. Is like you can find people who know people and like ask for a warm introduction, or happy customers will happily do that for you. Host micro events. So COVID was interesting, and I think it was Salesforce or somebody hosted this thing for their target account. Somebody posted on Twitter about it. It was a Zoom cooking workshop with some celebrity master chef person. So have some experiences that people can start talking about you. A lot of times, I don't do events, but a lot of times in my in-house roles, we used to work with the event person to have, like, if we were going to a conference, we would have like a wine sipping or something separately for the select number of open opportunities from the pipeline and some customers and some of our team. Or we would have, if we were saying to other a marketing company or marketing audience, we would say our CMO or our VP of marketing is giving this talk. We'd love to have you, and like build those relationships that way. And yeah, you can do like display ads and social and online ads and all that stuff as well. But it's just like, my point is that's not, running those things is not an ABM playbook. Now, the other thing is that you do not measure ABM, AKA outbound, the same way you would an inbound funnel, because it's a completely different dynamic. You want qualifying leads. Traditionally with inbound, you get a high volume of leads, 30% of them are junk right off the bat, another 40% are qualified. You give them to sales and they do a BANT analysis or they do something else. And then they say, okay, these people they're interested in opportunity. They book demos with the account executive team. But with ABM, if you're qualifying leads or contacts or accounts, then why would they be on your account list? Because they should only be in your account list if they're qualified, they have the right stack, they have the budget, or whatever else your ideal customer profile dictates. It's not sales versus marketing. This is an age-old debate that we've been having in marketing and sales, is that sales is doing this, marketing is doing that, marketing is sending shit leads, sales is not funding with leads, blah, blah, blah. It's all about, nobody's throwing stuff over the fence at sales and blaming them for all their problems. It's a revenue team, and it's a change of mindset on how you approach problems and how you work together. And be wary of engagement. It means a lot of different things to different people. A lot of times when you use these ABM platforms, they'll say, oh, this account is showing a high number of engagement, but it doesn't really say what the hell it means. So it could be they're just coming to your page and they're viewing your website. It might mean they're clicking on your ads. It might mean they followed you on social. It might mean that they're just like doing something else completely unrelated, but it's like an engagement signal. So engagement is sort of a black box of things that could mean different things to different people. It's critical that you align on a metric closer to revenue, like opportunities meetings, and have a handful of leading indicators. Because your sales cycle is so long, you need some leading indicators that you're at least moving in the right direction before you actually get to that opportunity or meeting or whatever stage. So you need to know that you're moving in the right direction, so you can work in some of the marketing metrics, like, hey, they came to our website and they viewed a bunch of pages, for sure. But don't rely on that, and use that as a leading indicator versus like your core metric. It is sales driven. So that's the uncomfortable fact that we all as marketers have to be comfortable with it, that ABM is not about marketing. And we as marketers, we like to make everything about ourselves. We think we're the center of the universe, but in fact, ABM is about sales. And selling to enterprise or mid-market doesn't mean that nobody's clicking on your blog or doing Google searches and buying a 100K product right off the bat. It could happen. I've done enterprise deals of Facebook ads. It's possible, but it's not as transactional as that. I'm coming towards the end. I would love to have some questions, but if you want to check out some stuff, GTM Nirvana by Colin Clark, The Modern Breakthrough on Marketing, that's an article by myself on CXL. Topo was an independent advisory firm that wrote a lot about this. Another one is Winning by Design. Topo got acquired by Gartner, so now they're no longer around, but I would definitely recommend it. And ABM is not B2B is a great article by David Kellogg that goes into what his thoughts on ABM are. David Kellogg is, if you don't know him, look him up. He's amazing, pretty impressive. And that's it for me. If you have questions, comments, I'd love to hear them. If not, then we can call it a day. Everybody can go back to their morning.
So Vanessa had a question. Do you want to come online and ask your question? I think that's always interesting.
Excellent. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Great job. Yeah, you just mentioned an account planning template, and I was wondering if to get it from you, should I just message you after, or will that be sent out?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Wes, I see you in there. You better have some questions.
Another one from Sebastian.
I do, Kamil. Yeah, sorry, I don't know what's wrong with my name. It doesn't show well. I've never been able to figure it out. But anyhow, like listening to your presentation, it feels like it's very much about culture in many ways.
Yeah.
Because it's like about organizing people and allowing them and like leading them to think differently. And the thing is not sales versus marketing, but everything is orchestrated and it works in a different way. How do you build that? Like, that sounds really great and like, okay, nice. But how do you actually do that?
It's incredibly hard, which is why, like, as an agency, when somebody comes in and they say, oh, we want to do ABM, I'm like, you got to have internal buy-in for this. Like, it has to come from the top. And the problem is a lot of people, I shouldn't say a problem. The mistake most people make is that they don't understand how much it is about the culture and how you organize your teams. And they focus more on the more tech stack, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, we should buy 6 cents because we need all this intent data to do ABM. I'm like, so I'll give you an example. With one of my customers, we bought some intent data from a vendor. We started doing some stuff. Sales was not even on board with it, and it went to waste. And the other thing with intent data, like I can go on intent data, but the other thing about intent data is mostly like it shows you, like if you buy G2 intent data, it shows you, oh, these companies are viewing this product page or competitor pages. But like, what does that actually, like, that doesn't mean they're in a buying cycle. That doesn't mean that they're ready to buy something. That's just like intent-based stuff is like as good as cold outbound in a lot of ways. You can use that data, feed it into your ads or whatever, and like do some warm-up campaigns. But if you're going to pass that intent data off to your sales team, it's as good as doing like cold outbound. The other interesting thing that came up with another conversation I was having was that in a lot of ways, when people come to your site and they download a piece of content, they're showing a certain degree of intent. And we ignore that's why I call it first party intent, because they're coming to your website, they're giving you information, they're saying, I want this white paper, I want to sign up for your blog. I don't know, something that's not, I want to talk to sales or I'm signing up for a trial. That's also first party intent, but we completely ignore that. And we're like having this conversation about gated versus non-gated and blah, blah, blah. And we're focused more on the third party intent data, which is like somebody's on some third party website randomly browsing something and there's Bambora is telling you that they're showing intent to buy something. Let's focus on the first party intent before we even go to third party. But anyway, that was a tangent that I've been thinking about. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, Ayhan, you wanted to ask a question?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Kamil, how's it going? Good. Great talk. Just a quick question. How, are you as a marketer influencing any of the outbound touch points that sales is supposed to do? Like this, so let's say sales as a cadence, call, email, call, and all that thing.
Yeah.
Are you also building the cadence with them?
Yes, so we'll do the copy, we'll do the email copy with them. We'll do like, oh, you're going after this account, maybe talk about this product marketing this feature, because this might be important. And that's where you need strong product marketing, like marketing and sort of influence or even write the email scripts for sales and like specific. And the idea is that sales gives input, marketing gives input, work together on that thing, versus sales doing their own thing, writing their own sequence, doing their, like a lot of times the problem is sales might be describing your product in a completely different way than what marketing talking about. So like when they talk to prospects, they're like, we are blah, blah, blah. And marketing is here talking about something completely different. So you want to align on that. You want to make sure you're saying the same stuff. And that in itself is a big challenge too.
Right, we have a question in the chat. Jeff, he said he cannot come online. He can't, his mic doesn't work. So here some people differentiate ABM and outbound by volume. More volume outbound, highly targeted list ABM. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Okay. Yeah, I agree. And I think Jeffrey and I talked about this on Twitter, but essentially ABM is about segmentation. And at the core of it, good marketing is about segmentation. So if you think about it, ABM is just you doing good marketing. And yes, Jeffrey, I agree with this, but yeah, if you're doing high volume, like you're sending 10,000 lists and blah, 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 that's pure outbound. And if you're doing more targeted segmented marketing and sales to a set of accounts, that's more ABM. Completely, yeah.
Any other questions? And so you were talking about, ABM is not 6 Sense or, IP based. What is, maybe just share with people, like what is the stack, like a minimal stack that you would use?
Honestly, you just need a decent CRM, some sales automation tools, and then you can just use LinkedIn and like so before, like I've onboarded Postal and Sendoso for direct mail, but you can just go to the post office. So we did this at CrowdRiff, where we were selling to travel destination providers like DMOs. So they're like semi-government owned, like Visit Toronto, they promote tourism in Toronto, stuff like that. We would literally go to the store, buy a bunch of cupcakes, pre-package them, sit there, everybody would sit there, then we would take them to the post office and mail them out. So you don't need a tech stack to do all of these things. It's helpful for sure. But it's like, if you're sending emails, you can use your Gmail, right? You don't need Salesloft to send emails. But if you're doing it at high volume, you need Salesloft to sort of automate some of those. But I would say a good tech stack is like, you need a core CRM and some marketing automation on top of it. But you don't need heavy, like whatever. Like LinkedIn is fantastic. I don't think people underestimate LinkedIn. You can get reverse IP lookup type information on LinkedIn just off like putting your pixel on LinkedIn pixel on your website, and then you can go into LinkedIn and see what kind of companies are visiting your website, and it's all filtered by LinkedIn's own first-party data. So it's much better than your lead feeders or your reverse clear bits of the world, because LinkedIn has like that information firsthand, and it's not based on some like outdated IP database that they might be using. So like you can just use LinkedIn ads to run some basic ABM playbooks and have sales talking to the same companies, and then do some direct mail and do some other stuff to them.
And Avinash, you want to come back? Otherwise, we can address it as well, like basic. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Unmute yourself, Avinash. You raise this hand.
I think he's having tech issues.
Yeah.
So his question is mainly outbound and qualifying accounts from ABM list, as I'm curious. I would say you shouldn't be on qualifying accounts. You're basically surfacing accounts that are showing that are ready to buy, or they're saying, yes, we want to talk to you, but marketing is generating awareness within those accounts. And then sales is trying to close those accounts. And well, marketing and sales are generating awareness within those accounts, and then sales is closing those accounts. So I don't like the concept of marketing qualified accounts, because that implies that if that account is on your target list, it's not qualified, and somehow marketing has to qualify them to make them qualified account. Like if they're on your target account list, why are they not qualified in the first place? That's like a big question mark for me. So the way I look at it is like, it's more marketing and sales saying, hey, we need to get into these accounts. They're trying to build awareness with those accounts to get them to be interested in what you're trying to sell. They might be coming to your webinar, registering for a webinar, and then saying, hey, this is super interesting, I want to talk to somebody. Or it might be, hey, one person is like, I like this, but I need to make a business case internally on why we need this tool, and marketing and sales is supporting that person to make a business case internally. And like what we did at one company was we did a lot of lunch and learns. So we would actually go to the company. This was before COVID. We would go to the company and say, we're going to bring some lunch, bring your VP marketing and your CFO and stuff. And I'm going to talk about like marketing and how to think about this and why this is a good solution for the problems you're having. Or you can do, you can like build decks for them. You can just like try to build a business case. You're not technically qualifying accounts, I would say, because that again goes back to if they're not qualified, why would they be on their list? Another interesting play that is you can actually, a metric that I forgot to mention in the presentation is you can do brand awareness, aided and unaided recall within your target accounts. So you can say, like we as marketers, I'm more of a performance marketing demand gen guy, so I kind of like roll as a brand awareness sometimes. But what's interesting is you have a set of accounts and you're like, we're gonna run some playbooks, we're gonna run some ads, we're gonna do this. And we're gonna, before we run those ads, we're gonna have a baseline of how much awareness they have about the solutions, like unaided. When you think about Salesforce data backup, this is top of mind because it is with a customer. When you think about Salesforce data backup software, what name comes to mind? And you let people put in whatever name. And then you say, if you, out of these 5-6 names, what is more familiar with, and they put in whatever name, that's your baseline awareness within those target accounts. And then you run your ABM playbooks, blah, 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 for 6 months. And then you run it again. And you say, out of these, and hopefully you see an uptick in people mentioning your name as the one that comes to mind when they think about Salesforce data backup or whatever that solution is. And that's one interesting way you can start measuring. And this is by Dave from Visible. He's running his own startup now. But give him a follow on Twitter. He's pretty interesting. He did ABM at Marketo. He did ABM at Visible. And this, he gave me this idea and like he wrote about it a little bit. And you can have a baseline awareness, and then hopefully over time, as you penetrate those target accounts with your marketing messaging and your sales, that awareness goes up, and people are more likely to favor you as a solution when it comes to Salesforce data backup or whatever that you think is you're selling. So that's something you could definitely do.
I wanted to ask you a question. Like, imagine you have a company and there's an appetite, there is definitely like the executives on board, they understand what ABM is, they study their customers, they understand who they should be targeting, they really nailed let's say the dream account list, they know who they should be go after. So let's say the basics of the strategies is set, they know how to position to that segment that they're after. Now, what would you advise for somebody who's just starting like that? What would be some of the plays that would be relatively easy to execute with somebody who's just starting, and that will also give you some result, both from marketing and sales perspective?
Do some direct mail. A lot of people focus on online. I always say go offline, go where nobody is, get their attention. So send them a box of cupcakes, like it's simple as that. We got a lot of, and this is from Janessa, who was at HubSpot, who was not at DBT. She wrote about this. I think Sebastian read that article. Or sorry, she wrote about this where she was saying our marketing ROI activity was sending people cupcakes, and everybody loves cupcakes. It sends a good impression. It's a friendly, harmless. You're not sending them swag. You're not sending them something. Who doesn't like cupcakes, especially chocolate cupcakes? Like, send them cupcakes, get their attention, and say, hey, like, this is us. We want to talk to you. If you ever want to give us a call back, like, this is my email. I would love to talk to you about XYZ. And it works. Like, it's as simple as that. If you were to look for online, I would say just like upload your account list into LinkedIn ads and run some targeted ads towards them, and just be like top of funnel, just awareness. Hey, this is who we are, this is what we do. And maybe some like do a tofu bofu type offer if you want, but like just run some LinkedIn ads. You don't need a $120,000 tech stack to do these things. Like, LinkedIn is free. You put in whatever ad spend you put in. They have incredible company account matching capabilities. You just upload a CSV list and they match their accounts. If you don't have a CSV list, go to LinkedIn and say people work at these companies, and just like build individual campaigns for each of them. So I think it was David from Visible who shared this, where he got an ad on his LinkedIn was like, hey, if you work at Marketo, we want to talk to you. And it's like, that was interesting. And like, it's simple, right? You can just go into LinkedIn and say, people who work at Marketo, I want to run a campaign towards them specifically. There's some audience size limitations, obviously, but like those are the two things I would do.
All right, so we have a concrete question about offline and direct mail. And we were getting that question previously as well. What do you do now when people are working from home? And how does that impact deliverability, let's say, rates?
Yeah, so what we did with one of our customers is like, COVID was really fresh, and we sent them an email and we said, it was from it was a personal email. It said, hey, like COVID's been tough, we just want to send you a care package, and it was like a basket of nice soap and like food, chocolate and stuff. And it said, we'd love to ship it to you, but we don't know where to send it. If you'd like, we can like drop in your home address and we'll just like ship it to you. And just like ask people for like, because it's also creepy if you send it to their home without asking them first, so you don't want to be creepy about it. So just like send them, hey, we want to send you something, give us your address and we'll happily send it your way. And like a lot of platforms do this, but you can just do this, like build a form in Google Forms, send an email to them, ask them to put in their address and then ship it to them.
What we also experienced is just calling like a gatekeeper or even just a reception, if you know where the office is, and just like verifying, say, hey, I have a shipment here for, Mr. or Mrs. such and such, and because sometimes they forward mail, especially like if it's if it's like a little gift, if it's not just like a letter, if it's just like a little gift, it's something. They'll forward it, or they may come like weekly to pick up their mail, etc. So, and that's the information you can get with a simple call.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things about COVID and work from home stuff is a lot of the IP lookup tools don't work as well now, just because people are working from home. You have dynamic IPs, nobody knows what the fuck's going on. Sorry for my language, and that's where like those playbooks sort of fall apart. You can use LinkedIn data. Obviously, they have first-party data, so they know from the LinkedIn cookie, they know who's coming. But again, with the cookies and iOS being phased out and Safari and all that stuff is getting harder and harder to do. So like, I think more and more stuff will move offline, because like somebody just said on the chat that people are getting burned from online experiences anyway. Like their Facebook is facing a backlash. LinkedIn is like getting a slowdown. Like everybody's like so burned out from online ads and all the time. So it's just like, it's a great way to stand out.
Yeah, well, just wanted to let you know, guys, like tomorrow we have a master on direct mail, Stu Heinecke talking at 5 p.m. our time, which would be 11 a.m. Eastern time. So he's really good at doing direct mail with creative outreach, and he'll be sharing some tricks there.
If you want to see a good example of direct mail, Lesson Lee, Kyle Lacey, they have this whole board game that they built. It's amazing. Like, check that out. My son was born 2-3 years ago, and I use Wealthsimple for passive investing, and they sent me a children's book. Like, they wrote a children's book and they sent it to me. Like, that was amazing direct mail. So like stuff like that.
Yeah, like if you can check people out, often you can come up with this very simple idea for a personalized gift, and that really works. It doesn't have to be, it can be like $20. It's not at all about value, but if it's like, is the thought that counts, as they say. If you put a little bit of thought into it, it can really make an impact.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
All right. Any more questions? Should we be wrapping it up? I really like, the session was like to the point, short and to the point, really touched on all the major issues. And I really loved the discussion. We had a really good discussion in the end.
Yeah. And if you want to like chat about intent data and ABM stacks, I'm happy to anytime. Hit me up on Twitter. I'm always on Twitter.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody also for contributing, coming here. Really appreciate it. And the next session will also be on ABM. We'll be sharing some case studies. Well, Adam Goyette will be sharing some case studies in 21 minutes. So if you're interested, you can join there as well. Thanks everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.